The book of Ecclesiastes tells us that both the wise and the fool, the righteous and the wicked, perish in the same way, and that everything is vanity. How should we understand this book of the Bible? Our guest today is Dr. Jacques Doukhan, professor of Hebrew and Old Testament exegesis at Andrews University. So I invite you to take your Bible, a notebook, and join the conversation. Dr. Doukhan, thank you for being with us. We're very glad, very happy that you're here with us.
It's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
We are going to speak today about the books of Proverbs, Canticles, and also Ecclesiastes. Okay. Let's begin with the book of Proverbs. Right. What is the message? There are lots of Proverbs there, but what would be the message and the structure of the book of Proverbs?
Well, actually, the structure and the message are somehow related.
Oh, okay.
We have 7 sections in the book of Proverbs, and well, in a general manner, the book of Proverbs was attributed to Solomon himself. Mm-hmm. Okay, yet we have other writers. Okay, we may come back in one of the questions you may ask, about these writers, but they are not part of the Israelite tradition. They are foreigners, pagans even. Yeah. All right. And then we have a woman who is also speaking.
Oh, okay.
I mean, which is really the mother. All right. Before we started, we start with the father who speaks, and at the end it's the mother.
And right? Which chapter is this? Where there's
the last chapter.
Last chapter is chapter 30, I guess.
You have when you have okay, quickly. So in a way, you begin with the father and you end with the end of the. You begin with the word, the message of the father, and you conclude with the message of the mother. Right? It says in chapter 31, the words of the king Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. All right. So the mother has also something to say about the education of his son. He's the future king. So. In that sense, and when you read the book of Proverbs, it doesn't seem to have some kind of coherent, progression. Yes. It goes. You read the Proverbs and you see what's the connection between this thing and that thing, and sometimes even you have a contradiction. Mm-hmm. You should speak. You should not answer the fool according to his foolishness. Otherwise, you will be fool like him. Mm-hmm. And then next verse. You should answer the fool according to his foolishness. Otherwise, he thinks he's a wise person. So you have these situations, the book of Proverbs, contradictions, complexity, all kinds of things, which speaks about everything when you are in the market, when you are with your wife, or with your husband, when you eat, when you drink, when you learn. Everything is there, and it's life. This is wisdom in the marketplace. This is God in the marketplace, right? This is what makes the book of Proverbs very relevant. Yes. Because it's not just a book of theology where you worship God in the church. It's the God who is going to be with you wherever you are. When you go to the kitchen, when you go to your business, when you go to school, God is there. And it should affect, and this should affect your life. And that's what we call the fear of God. This is what the fear of God is such an important motive in the book of Proverbs. The fear of God is, you are aware that God is everywhere. Right? Wherever you are, God is there. All right? That's the fear of God. So that's so you can see the message of the book of Proverbs. This is it, the fear of God. God is present everywhere, at any time in your life, and your religion is not just something you do, in church. Religion is life.
Yes. Now, you have mentioned that some of the authors of these proverbs were not Israelites.
Right.
Should we consider these proverbs that these non-Israelite people or wise people wrote equally inspired as the ones that Solomon wrote, for example?
Actually, this is what the text is saying. First of all, on the level of the principle, we have in the whole Bible many kinds of people writing. Even some criminals are writing there.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
David was a criminal.
Correct.
Right? And so we have very wise people and very not so wise people who are writing, and yet they entered the inspired canon. And that tells you that God speaks to us through men. They are limited men, what they are, so that he can reach us. And then because he wants us, he wants to use us also to speak to each other. Right? So that's a general principle, which shows that the Spirit blows where it wills. Right? This is, after all, what God. This is God who is speaking. This is not
the person.
This is not because you are good that you are going to speak. It doesn't matter. God speaks, and this is why the prophet Jeremiah says, "You raped me," he said to God. Strong words in the Hebrew text. You violated me. I mean, that God speaks through us as prophets.
Yes.
So it doesn't depend on you that God speaks. God speaks through the human, the way they are, and that makes suddenly these words inspired. Right? He uses this word, just as he uses the events in Hebrew. By the way, it's the same word, events and words, to speak to us.
So God can speak by any person, even a person who doesn't believe in Him, probably,
and
or
then,
not.
then when you look at the book of Proverbs itself, at the very end of the book of Proverbs, you have here a reference to a person who he actually he's not a believer even. He says himself, ETL means there is no God.
Oh.
That's another name of Agur. By the way, if you read the Hebrew text, Agur identifies himself as ETL, which means there is no God. And then he says, surely I am more stupid than any man. That's what he says. And God speaks through him, the most stupid than any man. And this is very important, because it tells you that, that doesn't depend on your intelligence that God speaks. It's not because you are wise that you qualify, to be God's spokesman. No, God speaks to you. And then what is interesting is that in that context, this man who actually had this experience of not believing in God, but then of course he repented later, and then he discovered God. He says, every word of God is pure. Do not add to his words, lest he rebuke you. He's using the language, by the way, which is used in the book of Deuteronomy, which is used in the book of Revelation.
Yes, of course.
Which support the idea of inspiration, canon.
Yes.
So yes, they are part of the canon. They are part of the inspired words of God. And this is wonderful, because this tells us that God does not speak to us through a culture. And that makes the word of God universal.
Yes. Now, let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes.
Okay.
What is the message of the book of Ecclesiastes? And is this message related to its structure?
Yes, it is related to the structure. Very often, if not in all cases, we could say that the construction of the whole book conveys the message, reflects the message.
Yes.
This is why I'm always, attentive to the way the book is shaped, because I learned from that shaping, that beautiful form, by the way, a lesson about the message of the book.
Yes.
And the key words of the book of Genesis, the word of Ecclesiastes, the word which recurs, several times, most of it is the word hevel, which is vanity.
Yes.
All is vanity, right? By the way, the word hevel is also the name of a person. This is the name of Abel, which means a vapor, right? No existence, no substance, right? So, and he says, so this is what he says, all is Abel, all is no substance, no, and all means everything, right? We need to realize that, and this is this reflection, that which is, by the way, somehow rooted in the book of Genesis, especially in the first pages of the book of Genesis. All what you see in life, all your life doesn't make sense. All what you do is like Abel. You came, you disappear, no trace.
Yes.
You are like a vapor. All what I built, Solomon said in the book of Ecclesiastes, because we have many evidences also that Solomon indeed wrote the book of Ecclesiastes at the end of his life.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
So he wrote that book, and he realized, all what I built, including even the temple,
Yes.
all what I did is vanity. On the other hand, all what God did is not vanity. So that's the message. The message of the book of Ecclesiastes is to make you aware that all what you do, all what comes from you is vanity, so that you discover that all what comes from God makes sense.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about this idea, the idea of vanity. We have in the book of Ecclesiastes the idea that the righteous suffers, the evil person suffers, or everyone suffers, and so everything is vanity. So, does it make, is it really worth it to be righteous? And is the book of Ecclesiastes saying it doesn't matter what you do? It's anyway you're going to die, just like the wicked person?
He is, actually, in that sense, we could say that the book of Ecclesiastes is very contemporary. You know, we could say that this book is what we call, postmodern, deconstructing everything.
Yes.
All what you constructed, all your systems,
Yes.
they are all shaken.
Yes.
He is shaking all our system, all our assurances. Right? He is doing that to take you to a place where he wants you to be. That is, rearrange your priority, your scale of values. Right? Just for instance, we tend to think, well, what I do is valuable. I work for God. I give, just to give the best examples, I keep the Sabbath, I work well, I do all my best, and I think that's right. That's really the sense. Then he's telling you, no, even that is a vanity. Right? And then he observes, indeed, that it is true, because he observes the righteous person, he observes the wicked, all the same fate. He observes the wise man, he observes the fool, all the same fate. And then he goes even so far, further than, he looks at the man, the intelligent man, right? And he looks at the animal, the same fate. So, and he looks at the one who is really very wise, and so forth, and he sees that the wise is poor, that the wise is a failure, whereas the wicked, the fool, the one who doesn't have the means, he is successful. And he says all is vanity. Why is he saying that? He wants us to be aware of the fact that all what we do is not really valuable. Only what God does has future. Only what God does for you is not vanity. When you realize that you have someone who trains, who is an athlete, who is very strong, is very good, and then you have someone who never trained anything, and the one who never trained and who has never, he is successful, and the other one then you realize what? All is luck. It doesn't depend on me. You understand through that particular experience of injustice, of unfairness, that nothing depends on you. Life, the value, what makes really life valuable, does not depend on you. Grace. Yes. You understand the truth of grace. Once you have understood the truth of grace, then you understand the truth of life.
Now, the book of Canticles is a book that speaks about love.
Okay.
It speaks about this relationship between these two persons. What can you tell us about the message of Canticles? What is the message? Why was this book written and included into the canon?
Right. Well, this is, like, by the way, the book of Ecclesiastes, which has several contradictions and therefore raised suspicion. The book of Song of Songs has something else. It has even eroticism, and therefore it raised some suspicion. love. This is not to know really the way the Bible speaks. I mean, where actually love and contradiction, to refer to that, are a part of life, and therefore they deserve our attention, and therefore they are values, because God is the creator. He's the creator of life. He's the creator of even love. Of course, He's love Himself, and therefore we should expect that love should be a part of the canon. And the book of Song of Songs is one of the illustrations to that particular, importance of love here. We have to also realize that very often the love is used by the writers, biblical writers, to refer to a relationship between God and His people, the conjugal love, and the word yada, which means we translate to know, but actually it has more than to know. And God says, you should know me, and so forth. And it's a language which is a part of a conjugal language.
Yes.
It's a language which expresses relationship, intimate, personal relationship between husband and wife.
Yes.
And this word is used to refer to relationship between God and man, between God and His people.
But some people think that the book of Canticles does not speak about human love, but about this spiritual love of relationship between God and us.
Right.
Is really this the case?
Well, in biblical, according to the biblical mindset, Hebrew mindset, you cannot dissociate the spiritual from the physical.
Oh, okay.
You cannot love spiritually if there is no physical love. That's doesn't fit, the biblical mindset, because for the biblical mindset, the body, the flesh, and the spirit are first of all united, and the body has been created by God. It has the same value as our intelligence and as our souls. There is no dissociation, just as it has been done. It has been developed later on in kind of dualistic thinking under the influence of Greek philosophy. No, that's not so here. So when God is speaking, for instance, He wants to illustrate His love to His people. He says to Hosea, the prophet Hosea, "You go and marry a woman, a real woman." So, and then through that particular experience, He's going to convey a message, a spiritual message. So you cannot dissociate the spiritual from the physical. So it is a real love. It is real physical love. So this is a real praise of love. So physical love is praised there. And through that physical love, you convey the message. You can also refer to a love between God and His people. Now, what is interesting about the structure of the book of Song of Songs, you have a he, she, a back and forth between he and she. Okay. The book of Song of Songs, the book of Canticles.
Yes.
And you have 3 sections, and each of these sections ends with a picture of someone who is knocking at the door. The same picture has been used in the book of Revelation to refer to
Jesus standing at the door.
Yes. So so the book of Song of Songs has some message, eschatological message. God is knocking at the door. We are longing for God. Right, He's not yet here, and at the end He will come. He's knocking at the door, but at the end He will come. Right, at the end you will have this encounter, and then you will meet with your Lord, and you will have the banquet, the wedding banquet, and so forth. So this is New Testament, but still rooted in.
This is a very interesting connection, because once you understand the connection between Revelation and Song of Songs or Canticles, you understand that the one who is knocking at the door is not just a stranger; is the beloved one. Is the one that you love and you are wanting to come.
Right, precisely.
Now, another question that comes to my mind when I read this book is the Shunammite. Right. Is she a real person, or is she a poetic, imaginary person?
Well, she's a real person. He would not speak about her that way if she was not real, because he's talking about a real thing. Yet, at the same time, she is kind of, how should I say that, there is a kind of a transcending
Idealization.
or whatever, but what is interesting is that the name Shunammite
Okay.
resonate with the name Shlomo.
Oh, okay.
You can hear Shlomo in her name.
Yes.
So she is the perfect counterpart. Shlomo, and she's in the book of in Genesis 2, God creates Ish, man,
Yes.
and then he creates Isha, the woman. So
yes.
Isha, Ish, see the
Yes.
perfect counterpart. She is the perfect counterpart, right? So in that sense, there is some kind of idealization. She is the perfect counterpart. There is perfect union, which is on the horizon here. So yes, maybe she is a real person, but
she's being idealized.
Yes, right,
Yes.
right. And the love we are talking about is a love which ends. If you go through the book, which ends at the end of time with the encounter between God and His people.
Who wrote the book of Song of Songs?
I think this is the book. This is Solomon himself. There is a tradition which says that the book that Solomon wrote 3 books. I mean, kind of a memory from the Jewish people. 3 books. He wrote the book of Song when he was young. Maybe he was not yet married. So therefore, he was still, exalting monotheism. Because you may be surprised, how. So he may have been in that kind of mood. Early Solomon, right?
Yes.
Young Solomon. That Song of Songs. And then you have, in the middle of his life, mature life, then he wrote a book of Proverbs. And at the end of his life, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes.
So that is what the Jewish tradition says.
Right.
Now, we have the wisdom literature, and both book of Song of Songs or Canticles and Proverbs and Ecclesiastes form part of this wisdom literature. What is the role that they play in this body of literature that we have in the Bible?
Well, it's interesting that this whole literature, as you call it, this whole, all these grouped, these books are of course related to the book of Psalms, by the way. It's in the third part of the Hebrew scriptures. You have in the Hebrew scriptures you have the Torah, the Pentateuch, then you have the Nevi'im, the prophets, and then you have the Ketuvim, the writings. And this last section, which is called the writings, begin with this, with the Psalms, and it begins with with these three books,
Yes.
which is you have the Psalms, you have the book of Proverbs. And you have the book of Job also.
Okay.
So you have these 3 books, and they take what is happening. What is interesting is that in the ancient rabbis, they took the first words of these 3 books, and they shaped the word emet, which means truth. So you have beautiful books here. We're talking about literature, book of Song of Songs, which is really the most beautiful song. The book of Job, the Psalms, the Proverbs. They are the truth. So you have truth also in beauty. All right? And that's the reason for that is that the truth of the Bible is incarnated in what you see, is what you enjoy. It's a part of life. It's not just a spiritual which takes you out of your flesh. It's on the contrary, something you appreciate while you live. And so that's what wisdom is. That's what wisdom is according to this wisdom literature. Receive what God has given to you, enjoy it, and shape it. So the beauty, what you do and what you receive from God is a part of the truth of the message for you, a message of God for you.
And Dr. Doukhan, you have summarized the message of the book of Ecclesiastes as a message of grace. That would seem to be something that is only related to me or to you in a very existential way. Is there a message in Ecclesiastes that goes beyond this existential meaning? Is there something more about the universe or about history or about something else?
Right. It's interesting that the book of Ecclesiastes begins with creation, by the way.
Oh, okay.
The whole prologue is creation, so it takes you right away into the cosmic scope here. And it ends the same way, with creation. but creation and judgment, by the way. Right? This is the only part of scriptures in the Old Testament and outside of the Old Testament, besides Revelation 14,
Yes.
where you have judgment and creation together.
In the three angels' message, the first angel's
The three
message.
angels,
Yes.
and you have them right here.
Yes.
Right? Judgment and creation are put together in the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, you have, it is true, in the book of Ecclesiastes you have a concern about the way you conduct your existence and the way you understand your life. Life, that's the principle. Life is vanity unless you realize that all is grace. It is either all is grace or all is vanity. All right, so that's what you understand that in your life. But this truth is also valuable for the whole history of humankind. And this is why the book of Ecclesiastes, and just as he started with a cosmic scope and brings you the lesson, of the history of the world, namely that there will be a judgment which concerns the whole world. And also, by the way, this is why you should live that way and fear God. You can see that the two are related. Yes. But the conclusion of the book of Ecclesiastes is interesting. It's an apocalyptic conclusion. He uses all the images which you find in apocalyptic literature. The darkening of the sun, and you have all kinds of
the
imagery.
Moon, the stars.
The moon and the stars. So he's using a language which you normally find in biblical literature in the context of the apocalyptic vision of the end of time. And many scholars have understood that, and they have realized that, that in a very surprising manner, this book, which we thought was just for our common existence, has suddenly a cosmic scope. It has also a lesson concerning the cosmos itself.
So the message is that there is a judgment coming, and it matters what we do in the context of the commandments of God, because He's going to bring everything that we do to judge.
But the message is that just as we are a part of the great divine project of creation, we small human beings are a part of this cosmic project of creation. We will be also a part of the cosmic project of salvation. So that's the message of the book of Ecclesiastes, which relates the existence to the cosmic.